Hello and welcome to episode 84 of What If Civilization Started Over. Let's get into it. So last episode we saw the second part of Wixo World War V. Let's continue this giant war starting over in Europe because the Ukrainians' plans in the Middle East and Europe are failing as the Mediterranean Empire sends troops into the Ukrainians and will be pushing them fully out of Greece and making their landings in Crete. They will also make various landings throughout the Turkish peninsula, and slowly over time will be capturing it. Over in the Middle East, it's bad for the Indians, as they are being greatly pushed back, as they have just lost basically all their territory. So the Indians are going to redivert most of their troops over into India in order to make a pushback and recapture the government / the capital, and they would be able to make two encirclements, but the Yemenis will still hold on. And while that happens, this is going to allow the blue country to be sending more and more troops into this area here, and also will be, yeah. But the thing is, this blue country is doing pretty well as they are pushing back the Mediterranean Empire over in this area. But it's no use as the Mediterranean Empire is continuing their advances over in the Ukrainian parts of Europe. As they will be pushing back, making the spearheads over into Turkey and capturing the Turkish peninsula, and continuing their pushes back, and the front line looks like this. Time to go to the Americas. As America is doing very well right now, as they're greatly pushing back the Mexicans. They believe that if they can get Mexico out of this war, they can focus on fighting all of North America, and basically all of South America is fighting them at the same time. And the Americans, they won't make defensive front lines over in Mexico, so they can mainly focus on crushing these countries here. So that's what they do. And Americans will be sending their troops over into this country a lot more than usual in order to take it out of the war, as they will be capturing its capital. But then they will be going ahead and fully capturing this country, and will be going ahead throughout these coastlines, making a bunch of naval landings, and well, it's just no good for these countries, as America storms in and captures all their territories, as this country has collapsed. And, well, the Mediterranean Empire is going to be sending help, but then they just don't care, so they invade them. Yeah. And, well, these countries are just defeated. But the Americans will then be invading. Nope, that's not what happens. But the Americans will be invading into the Mediterranean Empire over here, and will be making the front line look like this. Next, the Mediterranean Empire won't withdraw from Greenland, as they believe it to be a very stable area. As the Americans will be sending more troops down to Louisiana and Texas, they would be doing very well against the Mexicans. They even make an invasion of Hawaii happen, where that successfully happens until it doesn't, as they're kicked out. Yeah. You go over here. The Americans are going to restart an invasion of these areas and start their another invasion of Cuba, like they've done many times before. They did it during the Cold War, and the Caribbean invasions go well. Yeah. As they will be able to push this country back most of the way. And it's mostly defensive lines over in the north, but the south, they're doing massive pushes over into Mexico, eventually capturing Washington area, and slowly slithering their way down the California coastline. Yeah. And as when we go over here, India is losing control over its colonies, as all of these areas will be falling over to the Mediterranean Empire. But, no, not that much, but this much. But India will be able to kick Yemen out of the Indian area. But India is just having a lot of issues. So the Mediterranean Empire is going to be, well, capturing and annexing all this territory, or just occupying it for now, as they send a bunch of troops into the area, and it's not looking good at all for these people. As the Mediterranean Empire is going to be sending more and more troops into Caucasia to try and take it out, or really kick the Ukrainians out of there. And they will start the invasion of Sweden for the, I don't know how many times, but Scotland is taken. And well, as the Mediterranean Empire slithers their way through here, they will be capturing the capital of Sweden, which is a very big defeat for this area, as they make their landings here where Ireland was defeated a while ago. And well, they just completely destroy Scandinavia. And they even use Greenland as a military base in order to invade up here, as they make their landings and take the entire Baltic coast of this country. That's not the whole Baltic coast. This is the whole Baltic coast. And now they're invading Finland once again. For that, I don't know how many times, but a couple. As the Finnish will go ahead and occupy this area, which I can represent by coloring this in. Yeah. And the Mediterranean Empire is going to be occupying this thing called Slavland thing that's controlled by Norway in real life. I don't know. And this is what the front lines in Europe look like. As we can see, they're being pushed back a lot. And well, all of the Southeast Asian areas and are just pushing in. The only real hope in the Americas at this point is, well, America. It's the Americans will be continuing their front lines gains as they continue going down Mexico. But they will also be successful in California, reaching Los Angeles, as Mexico is starting to fall. Until, something big happens over in New York. Riots begin to break out in New York. Riots for the Mediterranean. And, well, if I select a color, well, revolution breaks out in America and joins the Mediterranean Empire in the capital of America. And, well, this just completely discombobulates America, as the Mexicans will be retaking all these coastlines here and starting or continuing a giant push line. And, well, the Caribbean is falling, as the Americans will be trying to recapture the capital of New York, but it's not working. As New York, being the biggest city in their country, and, well, also their capital, is just not a good city to land in. Yeah, they were considering moving the capital to, like, here, or here, or maybe even here. But they like New York because it's a very big city. But, well, the Americans weren't smart this time, and they aren't being smart now, as the Mexicans will be going ahead and capturing Wisconsin and also Michigan areas. As America, well, the revolution starts to get bigger, as the revolution will be spreading over into New York, the Delmarva Peninsula, New Jersey, and, well, Maine, and also Ohio, and also parts of Virginia. And people are calling this the Second York Revolution. But remember that revolution that happened a long time ago? The first Americans? And welcome back to the York Revolution. York Revolution 2.0, and, well, the revolutionists are winning, as they will also be starting to spread across all the way over here in Canada. But these ones over here in Canada are falling, as most of them are mainly in support of the Americas and Americans and not their dictators. But the revolution over in the main area is being funded by an outside power that you can probably already guess based on the color. But the York Revolution 2.0 happens. And, well, this is really big, as Mexico will be going ahead and occupying the rest of this area. And America is just gone at this point. Well, who knows? But then, a pretty big event happens in this place. We have another color, as revolutions break away from the revolution. Yeah. This revolution broke away from America, and then this revolution, this orange one, broke away from the Green Revolution. And these ones will be able to capture the capital. And then the Americans are going to be like, That's our capital, so they go ahead and make a landing here and occupy it, as more revolutions will go ahead. And well, now the capital city of America is occupied by 3 nations, and more rebellions, and this area is becoming chaos. As these rebellions will start to spread over in here, in the Canada areas, mainly in the capital regions of these countries, as they start to go big in the Quebec areas. And then they start to spread actually pretty big in the Canadian areas, as this one is the biggest one, and then this is the second biggest one. And well, America is just total chaos right now, so let's go back to Europe. As the Ukrainians are going to see this and make a defensive line in Caucasia. And also over here, they want to just go back down here, and they're going back down to Istanbul for the 45th time, and they will be making an official defensive line here. As, well, they don't know if the Mediterranean Empire has any of these nuclear bombs, and they don't, but there's still radiation everywhere, so they still use their radioactive hazmat suits here. And this is something as, well, yeah, the front line looks like this. Until the Mediterranean Empire goes through here on the border of this area. And it'll be encircling these millions of Ukrainian troops. And also by sea. As millions of Ukrainian troops are just stuck. Millions stuck in the encirclement. The encirclement of Istanbul. As well, these are like 15 million Ukrainian troops stuck in this area. Istanbul is now Ukrainian, but, well, at what cost? As 15 million troops and close to 20 million coming to help, but the Ukrainians are going to stop sending aid, and the Mediterranean Empire is going to await their downfall. But the Mediterranean Empire is going to continue their expansions as they push up over into the blue country and even reach their capital. No, the Estonian capital. The blue team's actual capital is here. Yeah. And also, the Mediterranean Empire goes down into Finland and will be going ahead and from two sides capturing their capital. Officially, almost. They will be capturing basically the whole Baltic Sea is captured by Finland. And, well, it's not looking good for the Europeans, or just the Ukrainians overall, as the Mediterranean Empire continues to go ahead and occupy a bunch of territories in Central Asia, reaching up to here and taking the territory. And, well, it's not looking good at all, as when we check the front lines in America, they're chaos. America's focusing on that. But in Europe, the front lines are just this. Yeah. These two giant front lines are squishing them. As they're squishing the Europeans out of their areas. But then, we have to talk about Russia real quick. Some things are going on in the Russian capital. There's, people are revolting and believing that they should bring back Russia. And they still believe that the puppet state is here. And, well, Ukraine is going to release the puppet state of Russia. And, well, Russia is back on this map. For the first time, despite being abolished in World War III by the peace treaties of World War IV, Russia is back on this map. And they are going to be doing stuff, having secret operations located in the capital of this country. And they have this countries that are being in. Let's talk about these secret operations. So, a bunch of countries are invited to it, such as this country, this country, this country, and basically, let's talk about this. This country, the Russian country, this blue country, the St. Petersburg country, the yellow country, this orange country, and this red country, and also the Ukrainians, before they decide to leave, and the Finnish, will all be meeting up in the capital of this country here. And also some officials of this country. Yeah. It's weird seeing the map before this war. This is what the map of the world looked like before the war. And this is what it looks like now. Pure chaos. Well, what are they discussing exactly? And all of them, exactly, they are discussing about Russia. They are making secret plans. They want to reform Russia. They believe that with a united Russia, that the world could go around, this all could be over. Everything here could be over. But, well, these secret operations are going on. Well, something big happens in Ukraine. An assassination. As the leader of Ukraine is assassinated by a Mediterranean spy. And this is going to bring more chaos into the country, as the country is already in chaos. And this will just cause defensive lines to collapse over in Ukraine, as Russian countries will be going ahead into the territories, and the Ukrainians are willing to let them in order to occupy some of the northern territories, as they're having hard times occupying them. As small revolutions start to break out in the country collapses. And, well, they, with the help of every Russian country, will be able to keep a steady front line about here. But elsewhere, the Caucasian capital is recaptured, and the Mediterranean Empire is really getting close to the capital. The capital of Ukraine. This capital of Ukraine hasn't been captured for a very long time. Wait, am I on the wait, what? Oh my, I'm on the wrong layer, ain't I? Yeah. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Oh my. Let me get there. Front lines, just going to this. Front lines look like this. I'll talk about Istanbul later. As the Mediterranean Empire will be fully occupying most of this Caucasian area. As these Russian countries will told by the Ukrainians to go into them to occupy parts of their country. As well, this rebellion is just one of the old countries that was here. If we go back to here, to the map, Ukraine is diverse. The original Ukrainian area looked something like this after World War IV. Then they annexed this country, and then eventually this country, and eventually parts of this country, and whatever countries were here. Yeah. And that basically makes this rebellion. This rebellion is one of those countries, as it's very, very successful, until Russian forces come in. And time to talk about these forces here. As well, the world has lost hope, but these troops are able to use secret underground networks through the Black Sea in order to bring a majority of these troops back to Ukraine. But Istanbul falls, and they find no troops. The Mediterranean Empire finds no troops in Istanbul, and that's surprising for them. But they have mixed opinions about this. They do not want Russia back, and they want to take control over the puppet state again. They believe that this has been their area. This is an official part of their country at this point, this Russian occupation state. If you don't know, it's been occupied ever since World War IV ended. Yeah? And now it's independent. Time to go back to India. As Indian forces are falling, the Blue Country, with thousands of troops from Japan, millions actually, and the Koreas, will be going ahead and capturing all this area. As some of these Russian countries will actually be going in to take some of this area. In India, it's just gone at this point. India is going to be purely defensive lines. As the world sees what's going on, the world has lost hope. They don't know who's going to win. Well, they kind of have a clear answer. Mediterranean Empire. At least that's what... Time to go back to the mess in America. As it gets even messier, as this rebellion starts popping up in America. Yeah, why is it getting so chaotic over here? But the Mexicans will start losing, as pockets over in Mexico will start breaking away to join America. This is very bad for the Mexicans, as Floridian groups would join America, but also, at the same time, even more groups will break away, like old countries that were once here, before Mexico and America annexed them. As well, this area is getting chaotic, but these rebellions are defeated. And, well, the front lines are well for the Americans, as they will be able to continue holding occupation of these areas. In a stunning battle, stunning defeat, the Americans will recapture the capital of New York, where some government officials are still alive, as they will reconnect their territories, and America is having a comeback, as they will be recapturing all these rebellious areas, and the rebellion of the Mediterranean falls. The York Revolution, this time, has succeeded, or it failed, as these two rebel groups will actually join the Americans now, as they, well, are just going to just connect each other, and are going to be capturing a bunch of areas, Native American areas. Well, areas that the Americans consider their territories, as all these areas here will actually surrender to the Americans, as the Americans will be going down into Mexico, making their huge comeback and capturing the capital of Mexico for the second time. The first capital, and also the second capital, as Mexico, as a country, just collapses. And, well, looking sorta, well, until it's not. As somehow, if it can't get even more chaotic, Mexico comes back. Yeah, the Americans are forced to make a defensive line here, as they can't beat this force. This force is being supplied by a foreign power. May or may not be you. Just saying. But this country was... America is just holding defensive lines. They can't beat South America, they state. They can't beat the stunning forces of all of South America, Mexico, and the Mediterranean Empire, all of them at the same time. Time to go to Ireland now. As Ireland is having revolution, people are breaking away, rebelling from this place. Let's talk about the history of Ireland real quick. Ireland has been a very diverse nation throughout history. They've mainly been on the Irish Peninsula, but they've went up in Greenland and conquered some of these areas, which are now currently occupied. But the Irish main beliefs are peace. Most Irish people believe in peace. And while they're involved in a war, which doesn't really promote peace, and they have a dictatorship. So when we go to the capital, we can see that a rebellion is happening. As civilian forces, overpowered by the military, will be capturing this territory. And hashtag Free Ireland is going all over Bookface and Gram Insta and TubeU everywhere. What was that sentence? These civilian rebels will be just going everywhere. They will be taking over the whole country of Ireland. And, well, Generation something is going to be taking over all this of Ireland. And Ireland leaves the war on... Well, I'll just keep the color, because I like the color better. But, it's not such a good idea for the Irish to leave the war, as the Mediterranean Empire is going to quickly, very quickly, go into their country and run it over. And, well, once these invasions are done, but they're coming from literally every single side. Just look at this. You're not surviving. But, with Mediterranean troops redirecting themselves from Europe in order to get Ireland out of the war, or out of the way, these troops will be able to push back over in Finland and, well, in these other areas. As the defensive lines will look something like this. And, well, it's not looking good at all. But it is, but not. But the front lines still look like this. It's not good at all. As when we go to India surrenders all of their territory here. Or just gets it all taken over. As the Mediterranean Empire is pushing in. And the Yemenis start their 45 billionth invasion of India. Yeah. Again. How many times have they invaded India in this war? I don't know, a few. And, well, they invade India from multiple sides. Again, as they take this area, and even invade this area. and Sri Lanka. And well, not looking good. The world has no hope as Ukraine collapses, as the world's second strongest country has now fallen down. Ukraine is gone. It has just collapsed. But who knows? Something might happen soon. And indeed it is. Something big is happening. Time to talk about China. China, which is the only country in the world not involved in this war, has been neutral this entire war. They haven't done a thing the entire war. As well, you look at their empire. They're gigantic. And, well, just as the world is losing hope, Plan Shanghai is going to be happening as China joins the war on the side of the Hexagon Alliance. China has just joined World War V. But not only that, remember the secret operations in Russia. Remember them? Well, they're succeeding, as Russia is going to get some nations to join it. This country will be joining up with Russia. And, well, this will cause a ripple effect, as this country will then join after. And then this orange country is going to join Russia after. And, well, you can see the ripple effect here, as this country eventually joins this Russian Federation, as Russia is rebirthing itself. Eventually, the St. Petersburg country, a country which has a lot of sovereignty in it, is, despite its sovereignty, like people wanting to be independent, it joins. And even Finland, a country that has historically been a huge enemy of Russia, joins the Russian Federation. And also, this country joins the Russian Federation. But then, in a surprising turn of events, with Ukraine collapsing, Ukraine is going to join the Russian Federation. Ukraine, once the world's second strongest country, has fallen off the leaderboards, and they have officially joined the new Russian Federation. Russia is back. After over a century of being gone, being occupied by the Mediterranean Empire, they are done with the world being controlled by this empire. And with them coming back, and also China joining the war, the whole world is involved in this war. Everybody has chosen a side. Either the good side of the triangles, the good side of the hexagons, or the side of the triangles. Russians or Mediterraneans? People are trying to choose. The world is, well, flabbergasted, as troops are on the borders of all these countries in China. And, well, with Russia reforming, this new Russian state declares that they will be the end to the Mediterranean Empire. They declare that they will defeat this empire. They are done with being tormented. They have been tormented throughout history. They've been carved up multiple times. World War Zero, Russian revolutions, the Cold War, their giant history was erased by the Mediterranean Empire because they were occupied, removing their identity, they were forced to call themselves Mediterranean, and the Russians are done. They are done, is what they state. And with Russia joining the war, and Russia starting to put troops into these countries, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of What If Civilization Started Over. See you in the next episode, where we will look at the finale of World War V. Bye!